Now that we've seen what Ursa is capable of, I wanted to see a side-by-side comparison of Ursa's raw abilities next to the Red Epic. So we called in our buddy Mick Pacifici over at Evergreen Studios to help us build a rig that would house the Ursa and Red side by side for a direct comparison. Evergreen Studios is well known for their 3D production, and without them I really couldn't have done this, so a big thank you to Evergreen for all their help. They were able to rig it up so the Ursa and Red sensor plane were perfectly aligned, and we begun our tests. First, we started out by overexposing our image and opening up to somewhere between 2.8 and 4. As you can see on the left, Ursa's image is completely blown out, while the Red is pretty hot but doing a better job of keeping the highlights in check. After raw recovery, however, we found that Ursa did much more heavy lifting when it came to bringing back information. The trees and grass that were previously gone came right back. The skin tone is definitely nicer on the Ursa, and the hair and dress color are more accurate. There's also more detail in the hair. I should note, by the way, that we were using the exact same Zeiss 50mm Super Speed on both cameras, so we could do an apples-to-apples comparison. The next test, we closed down a bit to somewhere between 4.5 and 6. Again, Ursa is a bit toasty and the Red is pretty flat. After raw recovery, we noticed that Ursa once again brought back more of the background. And again, I prefer the skin tone, dress, and hair detail. Moving on, and closing down the iris further to somewhere between 5, 6, and 8, the Ursa exposure seems much better than previous takes, but the face is starting to look a bit in shadow. Now of course, we weren't using any lighting or fill because we wanted to see just what the camera's RAW could bring back. Not surprisingly, both cameras did a very nice job of recovering information, and I think this is Red's best take so far, as the skin tones look smoother and more natural than they did in the other takes. But once again, I gotta say, I kinda prefer the look of Ursa overall. At this point though, I think it's more of a preference thing. Okay, last comparison. This time, we just exposed for the background, which left the face and hair very shadowy. Now, take note of how underexposed the hair and dress are, which will be of considerable importance in just a second. After recovery, Ursa reveals one of her biggest flaws: fixed pattern noise. Now, this was a huge problem for the Blackmagic production camera, and since this is the same sensor, it stands to reason that this is the same problem. In general, we found that we had a much easier time overexposing Ursa's sensor in RAW mode and bringing back information than we did when we underexposed the sensor and tried to recover the information. Ursa's fixed pattern noise is a real problem. I mean, it's ugly, awful, and pretty much unusable. When the original Red came out, it suffered from this problem as well. But take a look at the current Red Epic on the right. It's smooth and clean and did a fantastic job of recovering the underexposed image. This is one of those things that reminds you that you're working on a $6,000 camera.